So throughout the time of our class, we've had different materials introduced to us week in, week out. A lot of the material always covered about children with disability and the programs that they might be in or acts that might have been granted a long time ago that are in act that are playing. One of the couple of things that I definitely took notice to was the sympathy interviews and the restorative circles. So the sympathy interviews, it was just very, very rewarding. Sympathy and being empathetic are definitely two completely different things, and I think understanding that with children with disability is something that everybody should learn about. Just because in the videos, a lot of them talk about just because they have a disability doesn't mean that they aren't able to do the things that us quote unquote normal people are able to do. And then also with that, it brings a relationship that you can build with your students, is what I learned. Having that bond for being able to understand them and be empathetic if they're going through or they're having a rough day, which also leads me to the times that I did the interviews myself. So I wasn't in a classroom at the time, so I wasn't able to ask the students that I was with, but I did ask my friends, which was the other second part of it that you could do. And with that, um, it was just kind of unique when you asked certain people the questions, which were, what was the best thing that you've done, or what's the best time that you've gotten a good grade, to like going, further down to like, what did you struggle with? So it just shows you that you should start with something positive and then, you get down to other things that might not be so positive. But with doing that, it was interesting because a lot of them, had to take some time to think about what was something that they've done that was really good, or they were proud of. And then it was a lot easier for them to think about something that they struggled with and something that they've done great, which I think is anybody really does that. You always think about the negatives rather than the positives. So just starting it with a positive note and then not ending it on a bad side, but just having them reflect on that was a good idea. And then it just leads me to the restorative circles, because this also uh, is a community type of thing and then a connection, because in these, you're literally physically in a circle with your students and you're sitting down with them, and you're not sitting on a chair or looking greater than they are because you're on their level. So, with this, I feel like I've never actually experienced this. I might have experienced this when I was younger, maybe like third grade, when we got to bring something in and share with the classroom about why it might have been something that we brought in. But I feel like that's all I ever got in my classroom, or any time, honestly, when I was younger. So to me, this is like really important, because not only are you trying to have a connection with your students, but you're also trying to build that trust with them, which is what a lot of students I feel struggle with when they are in a new classroom or within a new environment. They just tend to do the things that they're used to because that's just what they've been accustomed. But when you teach them and you kind of show them that you can trust them and that they are able to express themselves to a certain extent, obviously, being responsible and respectful to everybody else, um, it brings you as a classroom, as a teacher and student better, but also as a classroom, because, if they are struggling with something and they share it, their classmates most of the time will try to be helpful with them, or they'll understand where they're coming from. So then that also leads to a better classroom environment, because everybody's getting to hear what each one is going through, or or just something positive. You get to connect with them other than like, oh, they're just my partner, or just somebody that I have to do this math problem with. So another thing too though, so those two just stood out to me because I feel like they're just looked upon. It's just like it's something that we're supposed to do, but a lot of times we don't. But the biggest one for me, I feel, is the self advocacy and the self care. So with the self advocacy, the student being aware of what they need and having that voice to tell uh, the teacher or whoever else or the parent that they do need something, I think is very important because most of the time, we try as teachers try to look at it and be like, all right, well, it looks like you're struggling with this, but maybe they actually weren't struggling with it and they were just not really doing it the best that they could have, and they're actually struggling with something other than that. Um, brings up the self care for me because we talk a lot about how we're trying to help all of our students reach their goal or try to be better than they were when they came in, and we're constantly doing stuff like I mentioned in my reflection. A lot of it is a to-do list. Every day we start with what are we going to do today and what have we finished and what are we going to add on to the next day. And so then that just has to do with what am I going to do with for myself to make myself feel a little better because sometimes not all of us have a great day and that's okay, but who am I going to surround myself with to lift me up and what am I going to do to lift myself up because sometimes you don't have that person right away to lift you up. So thinking about something that I can do for myself to lift me up it was really nice for me to hear just because I feel like a lot of the times we're just so focused, like I said, to do great for our students and to make them succeed that sometimes we forget that we are just humans ourselves and that we do need some time, to take a breather, to take a break. So those were just really key points for me.